and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our brand new stamp set, I Like Cute Moths, along with its coordinating dies and coordinating coloring stencils. And we're also going to take a look at the I Like Cute Moths add-on stamp set and coordinating dies. And these two sets go together so well, it gives you extra sentiments and cute little trails for those adorable moths. And then we're also going to take a look at All the Witch Hats stamp set with its coordinating dies and coloring stencils. And I love that this gives you a bunch of different witch hats that you can add to your favorite characters to bring them into the Halloween season. First up, we're going to check out the I Like Cute Moths stamp set, which is filled with cute moths. I absolutely love these little moths. They're so cute and so fuzzy, and I love all of the little designs on their wings because they are so much fun to color in. I think these guys are absolutely adorable. They're perfect for fall cards. They're really cute on Halloween cards, but they're great for year-round cards, and this set is filled with sentiments that help you use this set all year round. It has a super cute moon and some adorable stars, which are really great for setting the scenes for these really sweet moths. And I also love that there's a little lantern there to go along with the moths going towards the light. We also have these little light shine marks to add next to your lantern, and a little speech bubble that you can add these tiny little phrases into. And we have a bunch of cute little phrases. We have flying by to say, have a cozy day, or thanks so moth, have a nice night, which is really cute. So you could do like flying by to say, have a nice night, or also happy autumn. And then we have some larger sentiments that are these fun mix and match sentiments. So we have thank you, very moth, so you could use the thank you on its own or with the very moth, and also you light up my life, which I think is so sweet with these moths. Here you can see we also have a cute little exclamation point too. Now this is the I Like Cute Moths add-on, which has extra sentiments that you can mix and match. So we have I love you and I miss you. And then we also have tiny little phrases that say I heart you so moth or miss you so moth, which are so cute. And then these fun little dotted trails that you can add behind the moths to show their kind of flight path through your card, which is so sweet. And here you can see how you can mix and match it. So you could say I love you very moth, I miss you very moth, etc. And again, this gives you a ton of phrases so that you can use these moths in all different cards all throughout the year. So now it's time to start adding color to these adorable moths. I'm going to be using my Copic markers here, but you could use any alcohol-based markers. You could use colored pencils, watercolor, or coloring stencils too, and we'll show you those in just a little bit. And I love these moths because you could do more traditional colors, staying in like the browns and the yellows, or you can make them kind of magical and do these fun little mixes of colors, or be inspired by things like Luna moths, etc. that you can look up online. But I really like just doing random colors too because I think it's just so pretty. For the little bodies on the moths, I like using really light browns or really light grays for them. And then I like bringing in different colors to match the color scheme of my card. And for this moth here, I was inspired by a card by Tammy, and I absolutely loved her combination of this dark orange, and then she's going to bring in like this dark tealish gray color, and it is so pretty. I love these two together. And so I'm adding orange to the inner part of the wing and then to the details, and then I'm bringing in that grayish teal color there for the wings. And usually for the smaller part of the wing, whatever color I use for that is the same color I use for the cute little details too. For the body of this moth, we're going to be using some warm grays, which I think might be my favorite thing to use on these cute little moths. We're going to add to the antenna and then to kind of the outside of the body, and then we're going to blend it in towards lightest towards the middle, which I think looks really, really pretty. So there you can see I'm going to lay my darkest marker down, blend it out with my medium, and leave most of it to the lightest ones of my markers, and I think that makes them look so cool. For the wings, I always like to add a little shadow that's closer to the body. I add a little bit extra of my dark marker towards that kind of inner area, and I feel like it really gives them really nice dimension when you do that. I'm using the same colors as I did for the previous moth because I'm just kind of obsessed with this orange and grayish teal color, and I want to use it on every card I make. It's so pretty. And so there you see we're adding our orange in, and then for the top detail of the wing, instead of bringing in a different color, we're going to use just darker versions of the warm grays that we use for the body of the moth. Now for this moth, I wanted to do some really bright colors because I thought that would be really fun. So I'm bringing in some bright teals, And then I'm going to bring in some bright purples. We have this new sparkle cardstock pack called 90s Tracksuit, and it's been kind of inspiring my color palettes here. I thought this kind of had this fun 90s vibe that we're going to add to this cute, like kind of early 90s vibe there to this fun little moss. So I added the bright purple on the outside edges and then yellow for all of the details. And then now I'm going to bring in a neutral gray instead of the warm gray just to try something different. You'll see I have the darkest part of my marker towards the outside, and most of the body of the moss I'm leaving really, really light, and I'm just allowing the darkest marker just to be on the edges. Now for this moth here, I was inspired by a card by Grace, and I love how she brought in these reddish browns. I think it looks so cute on the moth. So we're just going to bring those in there. I actually brought in an even lighter brown to just fill in the rest of the face. So it almost looks like the light from the moon is on the face of the moth. And then here we're going to bring in some really soft pinky purpley colors. So we're going to bring in that nice purple. We're going to bring in some warm grays, and then we're going to bring in some rosy pinks. And I think this is a really fun combo for this moth that I think would look really gorgeous on like an I love you card. I just think it's so pretty. Now for the moon and stars, of course, we're just going to bring in some nice bright yellows to bring that nice pop of color to the card. And then for this lantern, I'm using the same colors as I used on that orangey teal moth. And so we're going to use those warm grays there for the lantern part, and then also for the candle base. I also used a neutral gray there on that speech bubble. We're going to use that same orange for the flame, and then those same blues there, I'm just going to blend out to be kind of like the blue of the glass. And then I added a little bit of yellow around the flame. And here you can see how cute those moths are and how fun it is to bring in the other sentiments from the add-on. I am just in love with these guys. Now, one thing I really like to do with these moths is add some rosy cheeks, so I'm going to add some rosy cheeks to all of these guys too. So now it's time to die cut these cute moths. So these are the coordinating dies which already come separated. All you need to do is line them up with your stamped image. You hold it in place with some low tack tape, run it through the die cut machine, and you'll have perfectly cut out images every time. We also have coordinating dies for the I Like Cute Moths add-on, and they cut out those adorable little trails. So we're going to take these, we're going to line them up with our stamped images, hold it in place with low tack tape, we'll run it through the die cut machine, and then we'll have these cute little trails that have been die cut that are perfect to add into the moths. Now these are all of the images in the I Like Cute Moths stamp set. Oh my gosh, I'm just in love with these moths. They look so cute, and they're so much fun to mix and match in different scenes. So you can use them on their own or mix and match them together. You can have them hold the little lantern and then use that little shine there to show the shine of the lantern. We have a fun little speech bubble that you could stamp those cute little tiny phrases in, which are really fun to layer with your adorable moths. You can have two of them kind of conversing like they are there, or add the moon around the moth, which I think is so cute. You can even layer the moon behind a moth and create like a fun little vignette for a mini card like we did with our pink moth there. Or you can bring 3 or 4 or even 5 moths onto your card depending on the look that you're going for. I just love mixing and matching these so much. And then of course you can take the trails from the add-on and you can add them into your scenes to kind of show the movement of the moths. I think the trails look both cute die cut, but they also look cute stamped directly on the card too, or even heat embossed with like a silver or gold would be really pretty. Now, one of my favorite things to do with these moths is add little white gel pen lines, because it's something about the white gel pen lines on these little moths really make them shine. I add a dot to each of their rosy cheeks, and I'm adding like a line to each antenna, 2 lines around the face, and then lines going across the top or sides of the wings, and then adding little dots into the details of them, and you can see how cute they turn out. Isn't that so pretty? I just think it makes them look like 3-dimensional and like they're shining in the moonlight. There's just something about this that is so much fun. Now next up, we're going to take a look at the coloring stencils. This is the coloring stencils for I Like Cute Moths, and you can see it is a set of 3, and these are sized to be the same size as the stamp set so that they're really easy to store together. They have etched guidelines, so all you need to do is just line it up with your stamped image and brush on a little bit of color. Here I'm doing some light gray that I'm going to do on the body and the antenna, and all you need to do is just work your way down the stencil as you fill in the different details of these moths, and it's so much fun to do. I make sure to concentrate the color more towards the inner part of the wings and let it kind of fade out into nothing for the outer part of the wings. For the bottom parts of these wings, I wanted to use some yellow, but for the top parts, I'm going to be using some rainforest ink, which is really pretty. And so you can even do that with the stencil. There's enough space to be able to ink up both without even having to clean your stencil off. Then you can work your way down to the little extra details of the cute moth. So we're going to add some details, some blue at the bottom there of the wings for the little dots. And then what I'm going to do is use the same color of yellow over the moons, but just really build up that color so that they stand out on the wings of the moth. Then I always like to add little rosy cheeks, and I just take a light pink marker and just make some little oval shapes right underneath their eyes to give that cute little rosy cheek detail. Now, if you like the look of the white gel pen on the characters, you can do the same thing with the ones that you did with the coloring stencils. So it looks really good on both markered and coloring stencils image. And there you can see the cool three-dimensional look you can get on this gorgeous moth. And I just love the stenciled look on these moths. Now here is all the witch hats, and it has all the witch hats. It has witch hats in different sizes and in different orientations so that you can add them onto any of your favorite critters. So I like the ones that kind of have the little bit of a bend, and then there's the one that's kind of facing straight on. And this set also has two little mini phrases. It has Happy Halloween and Eek! And then of course a large Happy Halloween sentiment that I have been loving using on my Halloween cards. So now we're going to add some color to these witch hats, which you can do with your markers, with your colored pencils, with your watercolors, or your coloring stencils too. And I like doing black witch hats a lot of the time. It's kind of the traditional color, but it's fun to bring in other colors too, like purples or even greens or blues would be really pretty on these hats too. And what I love about these hats is that they are sized to work on almost all of our different critters. So you can mix and match them on any of your favorite little critters in your stash and bring those critters into Halloween. So you could use it on your capybaras or your moles or cats or dogs, or any of your favorite little animals are going to look so cute with these witch hats on. And so here you can see I'm adding some detail to the band of the witch hat with some purples and greens and grays. And I think these are looking so good. Now we also have the coloring stencils, of course, for these witch hats too. It is a set of 3 stencils, and it's sized to be the same size as that mini stamp set, so you can store it together. And all you need to do is just line it up with your stamped image and brush on some ink. I'm adding ink heavier to one side and letting it kind of run out into nothing on the other to give that cool shaded look. Then you can do the band and then the little buckle on the hat too. And I think this turns out so cute. I just love the soft look of the stenciling. And then just like we did with the moth, we can add white gel pen details onto our stenciled hat too. And I think that looks so pretty as well. So of course these witch hats have their coordinating dies, which you can line up with your stamped images, hold it in place with some low tack tape, run it through your die cut machine, and you'll have perfectly cut out images every time. These little hats are so cute. And here I brought out some characters I just happened to have on my desk. So I had my cute moths, I had this fun dog from our Joy to All stamp set, a cow from our Highland Cow stamp set, and a capybara from our Capybara stamp set. Why not? They can all be cute Halloween critters that are going trick-or-treating, right? So we're going to add different little hats to each one. You can see the smaller hats work really well on the moths, but then we're going to want the larger hats on the larger characters like that fun cow. So again, they're really sized in such a fun way to work with so many of our different characters. And you can see how you can mix and match these different hats on all of your fun little guys. I mean, this little dog, look how cute that is. It's just so much fun. Now it's time to start creating some cards with these fun stamp sets. And we're starting off here with some new forest teal cardstock. I'm obsessed with this color. It's so pretty. And I am going to be brushing on some Black Soot Distress Oxide ink. And right now I am recreating a card by Mindy. So thank you so much, Mindy, because the sky you created here was so beautiful. Now she used rainforest inks and deep sea inks, and I'm using some Distress Oxides. I wanted to just show you the different looks that you can get depending on how you mix and match these. Now here I brought in Uncharted Mariner because I wanted a little bit of that bluish color that she got with the rainforest and deep sea lawnfawn inks. And so I'm just going to bring that color in. You can see as we bring in that blue, it just brightens up the whole thing. I'm not adding any ink to the center of the cardstock, and that's what's giving it that fun glow. So I love starting with the color of cardstock and adding a little bit of inking to get that really pretty look. Now here we have this awesome starry sky stencil, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line it up with this whole panel, and we're going to be adding on some gold paste here. And so I'm just going to smear the gold paste on, and I'm just going to use this little palette knife here to just smear it all over the card. And you don't need a really thick layer. You can just kind of smear it and make sure it has a nice even layer over all of those tiny little holes and stars, and you'll see that it's just looking so pretty already. I just like even just before I lift the stencil even, it's just so shiny and gorgeous. But now with this big reveal, oh my goodness, we're going to slowly peel up the stencil, and isn't that just stunning? Oh, I love those shiny gold stars. They have a little bit of dimension and they're just so beautiful and sparkly. And so I'm going to set this whole thing aside to dry while I start to work on my sentiment. And so we're going to use the You Light Up My Life sentiment, which I think is so sweet and such a fun thing to do with the moths. I think the moths are so unique and so different. I think anyone would just love a card with these gorgeous moths. So we are going to prep our black licorice cardstock with an anti-static powder tool, stamp in some clear embossing ink, and then we're going to be sprinkling on some gold heat embossing powder to go along with the gold paste stenciling that we did earlier. And there is something about heating up gold embossing powder that just feels like magic. Rebecca and I were talking about this today. It's just so pretty. So I had to show you it in real time because isn't this just stunning as it lights up just like the sentiment says, right? It's just so beautiful. Okay, so now that we have that all heated up, we can use our paper trimmer here to just trim around the edges of the sentiment. And then our whole background's all dry now, and we've gone ahead and stamped and colored and die cut some cute little turquoise and purple moths, which are just so much fun. And then we're going to add some foam squares to the back of that piece that has our sentiment, and then we can go ahead and layer that onto this, and you can see how beautiful the gold heat embossing matches with the gold stencil paste. And then we can just use our scissors to trim off any of the excess. And then we can go ahead and add some foam squares to the back of these moths and then layer them into the seam. We're going to add the little lantern to the moth with the moons, which I think is so sweet. And then this moth is going to go in the center, and then the other ones are going to be kind of flying around the lantern, which I think is just so sweet and beautiful. And then here's a standard size card base, 5.5 by 4.25, and we're going to layer our panel on top. And now this card is all done. It's a relatively simple card, but it is just so stunning with that gold paste and those beautiful moths. I think this is such a sweet card that would definitely make someone smile. Next up, Shari is going to create a super cute scene with these moths, and then afterwards I'm going to make a fun pop-up. So take it away, Shari.
So for this card, I created a spooky forest with the new I Like Cute Moths, and I also pulled in the To My Fungi set because it has those fun mushrooms and that cute little snail. And here are all my images colored and cut out. So I've cut the spooky forest from some storm cloud cardstock, so we have that dark gray, but we need to create our background. So I'm starting with a piece of Bristol cardstock, and I have 3 colors of distress ink. The first color I'm going to do here is Wilted Violet. This is going to go near the bottom of the card, so this is close to the ground. Next, I'm pulling in Blueprint Sketch for that blue through the center, and I will just go back and forth between the two to blend them out. And I don't have such a harsh line. I'm going to pull that Blueprint Sketch pretty far up there. I'm going to use a piece of scrap paper to hold this so I don't add any fingerprints. And then my final color here is Uncharted Mariner. Now this one was a little bit darker, and I decided to go back with that Blueprint Sketch, pull it all the way to the top, and then add that Uncharted Mariner on top so that it was kind of still the same shades of blue. So this is our night sky. So we want some stars. So I'm adding some metallic watercolor splatters to this. And I'm using that kind of dark gold so it's not too bright, and I'll set that aside to dry. But I also want a big full moon to go into this background. So I have the full moon die in another piece of Bristol cardstock. I'm going to cut that out, and then I'm flipping this over, and I am going to tape this back into place just to hold this in place while I do some inking on my moon. So I will put washi tape on the back of the circle so that it holds it into this sheet of paper. You could also put this on a grip mat if you wanted. Now for my moon, I'm going in with Squeeze Lemonade Distress ink all over that moon. Then I have Wild Honey, and I am going to do this around the edges. So I'm darkening up those edges a little bit. You can see how this makes it really easy to hold that die cut in place while I add my inking. Then I can pop my moon out of this, and I have a beautiful moon. But I need a place to put that moon. Now you could just put that onto the background, but I want to inlay it and get that fun stitching detail. Now this piece is a little bigger than I need, so I'm trimming it down to be 4.25 by 5.5. so it will fit onto my card base. And now I can lay my spooky forest on top and figure out the placement of where I want to put my moon. So I'm just going to lay this on top and kind of feed this between the two layers of cardstock. Just figure out about where I want it, like how high I like those branches overlapping that moon. And I'll run this through my die cut machine, and now I have a place where I can inlay my yellow moon that I cut out. And we have that fun stitching detail around the circle. Look how cool that's going to look. So I will go ahead and put this background piece onto my card base. Then I can add my moon in that area that's cut out in the center. And then I will layer my spooky forest right on top with some liquid glue. And look at this cool night scene that we have created for the cute moths. I'm just cleaning up a little bit of my glue with my pick up pokey tool. And now I want to work on the bottom, and this is where my sentiment's going to go. So this is black cardstock, so it is a different color than the forest die cut. And I am going to white emboss the sentiment that says, "I love you very, moth." So this sentiment can be made by using the add-on set along with the big set. I have prepped my cardstock with my anti-static powder tool, and I'm just stamping this in clear embossing ink, and I will add my white embossing powder. Now I did cut this to be 4¼ wide, so this is the exact width of my card. I've added that white embossing powder. I will heat this up with my heat tool till it melts and we get that bright white sentiment on that black cardstock. Then I like to take my damp chamois and just wipe away the extra powder that's on here so that our cardstock is nice and black like we want it to be. And then I'm going to use the Meadow border die to cut the top of this. I like this tall grass. I think it looks really cool. So I'm just lining that up, and I will hold this in place with a little bit of low tack tape and run that through my die cut machine. Then I'm putting a piece of foam tape on the back below the grass line so that this can be popped up off of that spooky forest backdrop. And I really like the look of the black cardstock in front of that storm cloud cardstock. I think it gives some definition between the two layers. Next, I'm adding my mushrooms and my little snail at the bottom. I'm supporting the mushrooms with a foam square where they are off the grass. And I colored these in bright colors because I wanted them to look like they're glowing in the moonlight. So I have these other two that I will add over here on the other side, and then I'm ready to add my moths. For this one, it is going to be carrying this lantern, so I'm just going to attach that to the bottom. And for all these, I will use some foam squares to pop them up so we have some dimension off that forest in the background. And this one, I'm actually going to tuck that lantern behind that big blade of grass a little bit to kind of give that illusion of some depth of the scene. We have two more little moths, and they are just going to go up here in the trees. And then finally, for some extra little details, I'm going to pull out the add-on set and stamp some of those little trails. And I'm stamping the trails in River Rock ink, so it's a gray ink, on some mist cardstock. So it's going to have that aqua color to it. Then I also have the little speech bubble that I also stamped in River Rock, and the little sentiment that says, "I heart you so, moth." Then I will use the coordinating dies to cut out those little trails and the speech bubble. Then I can add these to the background. And also, I did stamp that speech bubble on fog cardstock, so you can see it's a little bit of a more muted color than the white that is around our images. I also have my little trails. I'll just add these with some liquid glue directly to the background. This one's going to go off the side, and then I will just trim it off with my scissors. Now I feel like we need some magical stars for this little scene. So I've cut some stars using the Hearts and Stars Skinny Tag Die. This is a brand new glue bottle, so it's being very generous with its glue up there. But I've cut this out of some lemon yellow sparkle cardstock, so we have that bright yellow sparkle. And I'm just adding a few little stars around in groupings of 2. And then, of course, we need some sparkle on our images to go with our sparkly stars. So I added sparkle to the details of the moths, so like the circles or the little stripes. For the one in the middle, I like to add my glitter to the moons on his wings and those little dots. I always add some to the flame of the candle, and then I also added some to the tops of the mushrooms and the snail shell so that everything is magical and sparkly in this forest. And then here is my finished card with those cute little moths in that nighttime scene with that big, beautiful moon. And I just think this turned out so cute.
Oh my goodness, Shari, I love this card so much. I love the spooky forest you created and the gorgeous mushrooms and all the colors. This card is just so beautiful. Now, I thought it would be fun to create a Big Hugs Ghost pop-up with the moths too. So that's what we're going to be working on here. And I have some mist cardstock that I am creating a standard size card base here that's going to be landscape. So it's 5.5 by 4.25. And we're going to do some stenciling on the inside of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this. This is the inside part of the card, and we're going to be using this slimline cloudy stencil. And I'm going to use speckled egg ink and then also faded jeans ink from the Distress Oxides over this stencil. So the speckled egg is going to give it this kind of grayish look, and then I'm going to come in with the blue over the edge of this cloudy stencil. Then once we add kind of enough blue, we can go ahead and peel up that stencil, and you'll see that we'll have these like really cool clouds that have formed. And so I'm going to keep working my way up this card. This set has 2 different stencils and each has a different side. So there's 4 different styles of clouds here, and so I'm kind of mixing and matching the different clouds. Now there I did some more of the faded jeans, and then I kind of went over the edge with the speckled eggshell, and then this one I went back and added the speckled eggshell first and then went back and forth. Any which way is going to look cool. This is going to be a spooky sky. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be kind of uneven and kind of neat. And we're going to keep working our way up this card. So now that we've stenciled all of these clouds, I wanted to make it a little bit spookier. So I'm starting off with that same blue colored ink, the faded jeans color, and I'm just going to go along all of the edges here. And you can see as I do that, it starts to make it feel like kind of more spookier and night sky. And then of course, we're going to bring in some black soot ink. So if you bring in some black ink to your Halloween skies, it's always going to make it feel really spooky. And so here you can see I'm just going along the edges, and then I'm just kind of going up into the clouds just a little bit. The parts of the clouds that are a little bit too bright, I'm just using whatever's left on my brush and just kind of going over them a little bit, just nice and light, and that's going to give it that fun, spooky feel. Now for the front of the card, I wanted it to have a little bit of the same colors, but not too much. So I'm only using whatever is left on the brush. I did not re-ink anything, and I'm going to go along with the brush that had the faded jeans or the blue ink, and then I'm going to go with the black ink after that. Then what we're going to do is add some splatters to both the inside and the outside. So I'm going to smear some of that black ink onto my work surface here. And I'm also going to take out some Copic white, but any white acrylic paint would do. This just happens to be what I have. I've been using this same jar for like 10 years now, I think. And so I'm just going to pick up some of that paint. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water and then tap my paintbrush to create splatters all over the sky. If not enough splatters are coming out, you can go ahead and just spray a little bit more water and mix that together. And then I'm just going to flip it over and make sure that I add some white splatters to the front of it too, just so that everything is kind of cohesive. And then we're going to go and mix up the black ink. So I'm adding some water, mixing that up, and then just tapping my paintbrush to create the black spatters all along the inside and also on the outside too. So I'm going to take this whole spooky card, I'm going to set it aside to dry, and I'm going to take out the Big Hugs ghost. This ghost is so cute. And so I've gone ahead and die cut the ghost and a little eye backer for him, and also his wings or arms and some rosy cheeks, which I ended up not using, but that's okay. I'll save him for a different card. And I'm going to add just a little bit of detail onto this ghost using some light BG markers. There's something about doing this that I think looks so pretty. So I'm using BG10, and then I'm going to blend it out with BG 40s, like the lightest marker I have. So whatever the lightest bluish marker you have, just go along the edges and then just blend it out. And there's something about it that really makes that ghost pop. Then to put this ghost together, I just need to flip him over. I'm going to add some adhesive around the eyes and mouth, and then just use a little piece of black cardstock to layer behind there to add some detail to the eyes and mouth of the ghost. And then for rosy cheeks this time, I decided to use a little bit of ink, and this is kind of like my new favorite thing to do. So I'm going to take a little brush and I'm going to dip it in some guava ink, and I'm going to tap off almost all of it, just a little bit on there, and then just give some little blushy cheeks there right on the outside edge of their eye. And I think that just looks so cute. So I'm going to tap off a bunch of the extra. And there's something about the guava ink where you tap off a bunch of it, gives it like the perfect color for these rosy cheeks that I think is just so, so cute. And so now this ghost is all done, and we're going to start working on creating our mechanism. And if you've never made a Big Hugs pop-up before, make sure to check out our intro video. We will link it in the description below. So here is that Big Hugs pop-up. This is the mechanism there. The Big Hugs pop-up comes with this really cute bear, but we also have this cute ghost that can work on his own or also work with the pop-up. And so that's what we're going to be doing here. And this piece here creates some fold lines for you. There are 5 horizontal score lines, and so we're going to go ahead and fold along those score lines and then use our bone folder to reinforce them. Then this die also creates these little diagonal fold lines, which you can see right there. And we're going to be carefully folding in these lines. So I like to take my index finger and I just slowly kind of press towards the top of that triangle that those score lines make for me. And that's going to kind of start to fold the lines there. So you can see those little lines start to fold as we start to press against them. Once they start to fold, you can go ahead and take your index fingers and just press in towards the center, and those little arms are going to kind of fold under, and you're going to get a shape that looks like this. So just to show you that one more time, well, I'm going to use my bone folder to reinforce the folds, and I'll show you one more time. So you're going to take your index fingers, you're going to push in, the arms are going to kind of collapse in, and it's going to fold over just like this. Then the next thing we need to do is add some nice strong double-sided tape. This is 1/4 inch double-sided tape, and I'm adding it below that score line onto that flap. You can see right there. And then we're going to go ahead and peel up the liner paper on those pieces of adhesive. And then we can go ahead and fold up right at that indent right there. We're going to fold up and press down to secure that in place. Then we need to add a little bit more of that strong tape. So we're going to add strong tape to that upper tab right above that fold line. We're going to add one piece really close to that fold line and then one more to make it nice and secure. And then we can take this whole piece and we are going to go ahead and flip it over, and we're going to add some adhesive to the back. There's this kind of mushroom shaped piece, and you're going to add your adhesive above that score line on this whole piece here. And I like to add about 4 pieces of tape just like that. Then once we have our adhesive on this whole mechanism, we can go ahead and bring in our card base that we inked up earlier. And we're going to peel up the liner paper on the back of this whole thing on that little mushroom shape. Then we're going to flip the mechanism over, and we're going to take that top part of the mechanism and we're going to butt it right up into the center fold of the card and then just press down to secure it. Then all we need to do is just peel up the liner paper on that top tab, and then we can fold down the card and press down to secure that in place. And as we open up the card, we're going to get the surprise of this moving mechanism, which is just so cool. Then we can go ahead and take our super cute ghost here. I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of the ghost, and then we're going to layer him on top of the mechanism. And I like to do this by folding the card down just a little bit and then just butting the top of the ghost up to the top part of the card. Press down, and it's going to put your ghost in perfect placement. Then for the arms, we're going to add adhesive only to the top part of the arm, and then the top part of the arm is going to line up with the arm of the mechanism, and then you're just going to push that in until it hits this natural stopping point, and then you're just going to press down to secure it. And then we can repeat the same thing. So we'll add some adhesive to the top part of the wing, and then we're going to line up the top part of the wing with the top part of the arm of the mechanism. We're going to make sure we go all the way until there's kind of like a natural stopping point, and then we can go ahead and press that down, and now we can play with our ghost and see what he looks like. Isn't that so cute? Oh my gosh, it just makes me smile. It's so adorable. Now here we have our spooky forest backdrop, and right now this card is inspired by both Mindy and Tammy. And so I'm inspired by Mindy's pop-up that she created, and then I used Tammy's colors, and I think that's so much fun to take ideas from our crafty friends and mix and match them together. I just had a blast with that. And I loved how Mindy brought in the spooky forest die into this. So what I'm going to do is just trim off the top of the spooky forest die and also the edges too, so that we're only going to have those trees, which is kind of a fun fun way to get another use out of this die. And I can just trim off that bottom there with my scissors. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some liquid glue to the back of these trees, and then we're going to layer them on either side of the ghost. And then I can go ahead and take my scissors and just trim off any of the excess at the bottom. And I think this is such a cool way to frame up this ghost. Then next, we're going to bring in the I Like Cute Moths stamp set, and they're going to help fill the top part of the card. And so we're going to be using those really fun teal and orange moths that we colored earlier. I also have the moon and that awesome little lantern too, and we're going to be layering these into the card. And so I love having these moths like flying around the ghost. I think it's so cute and such a fun way to use these moths for Halloween as well. So we've done like You Light Up My Life cards, I Love You cards, and now we have this fun Halloween theme. So we're going to add the moon up into the sky. I had those little stars, but I decided to leave them off and just kind of let the stenciled sky kind of be the main part of the show here. And then we're going to add the little lantern there with the moth, which I think is such a cute look. Now, I always like to cover up that bottom part of the mechanism when I create a card with a ghost, because I feel like I want it to look like a ghost is really floating. If it's the bear, I like to leave it because it's kind of like the bum of the bear. And so what I did was I just die cut that same mechanism out of the mist cardstock that our card base is cut out of. And I'm just going to trim off that little bottom like rounded rectangle piece there. And then I'm just going to ink it up with whatever's left on my brushes with the ink that we use in the background. So that kind of blue and black, I'm just kind of going over it. And that's going to help it kind of blend in and really make it look like the ghost is floating. And you definitely don't have to do this part, but I just think it looks kind of neat. So we're going to add some adhesive to that. And then you'll see, because we cut it from that same mechanism, it's that same exact size as that piece that's underneath the ghost. And so I'm just going to go ahead and attach that on there just like that. So fun. And look at that ghost. He's just floating there with his moth friends. I love it. So now for below the ghost, I wanted to add something, and I thought this spooky fence would be really cool. And so we die cut that out of Storm Cloud cardstock, which is the same color we use for those spooky trees. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim off any of the fence that would kind of overlap the trees. I want it to look more like the fences behind the trees. And then I'm just going to use some liquid glue on this whole fence piece, and then we can go ahead and layer that at the bottom of the card. And I think that just like really frames the ghost. I think it looks so cute. And then I'm just going to use my scissors to trim off any of the excess that's hanging off on the sides. Now I need to decorate the front of the card, and I'm going to keep the front of the card relatively simple so that the big show is the inside of the card. And I'm going to be taking out this giant trick or treat die to go along with this really cute Halloween theme. And I've die cut that out of some black shimmer cardstock, added some liquid glue to the back, and we're just going to layer that onto the center of the front of the card. And then I thought it would be fun to add some moths to the front too, so that it kind of gives you an idea of what might be on the inside of the card. And so I'm just going to put them right around the trick or treat sentiment, which I think is a really, really cute look. I just love those guys. I think this is so much fun. And then now the card is all done, and look at the surprise of the ghost waving his cute little arms and the little moths flying around. I think this is so much fun. I had such a blast making this card and creating those fun, spooky Halloween skies, and then bringing the moths into Halloween with these oranges and teals and grays. I think just looks so pretty and is so gorgeous and fun. And next up, Shari has 3 different cards that are going to absolutely blow you away using the moths and those super cute witch hats. So take it away, Shari.
So on this card, I am actually using the cutest of the cute moths, in my opinion, which is this little one with the moons on his wings. Here are some of my other die cuts because we're going to be putting him in a mason jar. But the first thing I want to do is work on my background, and I am using a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock and the sunburst backdrop. So I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. This is still in the die, so this is the back side you can see here. And I am going to take some washi tape and just tape that circle to the background because that circle is going to stay there. I don't want it to go away. I want it to look like it's one solid backdrop just with those stitching details. And then I'm going to be using some distress ink to create my background. I'm starting in the center with Squeeze Lemonade, and the look I'm going for is glowing in the middle out to darker colors on the outside. I want this little moth to look like he's in the jar just glowing away. Next, I'm pulling in Twisted Citron, and I'm going to kind of go around my yellow. And since this is Bristol cardstock, the ink kind of sits on top of the cardstock a little longer than it doesn't absorb immediately. So I can go back with that squeeze lemonade and blend between the two. Next, I'm moving on to salvage patina. And I am going to use a scrap piece of cardstock to hold my paper because I don't want to create any fingerprints on this Bristol cardstock. I wasn't getting as much ink as I wanted with my brush, so I switched over to a domed foam distress blending tool, and that ink is going down a lot faster with this. You can kind of see how it's blending with the green, and we're getting another green color in there. We are getting a little bit of a harsh line, but not to worry because I can go back in with that green, which is what I'm going to do here, and I'm actually switched over to the blending tool on this as well. And we're just going to blend those together and get rid of that harsh line. My final color on this is wilted violet, and you can see I don't have any white left over. So I'm just dusting the edges with the wilted violet, and this had a really cool effect on that salvage patina. I just love the color it created when those two mixed together, and I love how that wilted violet caught in those stitching details. It kind of made them look glowy too, even though they're a darker purple. It just had a really fun effect that I really liked. So I'm just going back and forth between that wilted violet and salvage patina. And now that I have my inking looking exactly the way I want, want to add some shimmer. So we have the shine and the glow of the ink, and now we're going to have the shine and the shimmer of the metallic watercolor. So I'll set that aside, and now I'm going to work on my die cuts. So this is the Build-A-Drink mason jar. I've cut this from narwhal cardstock, and I'm just using a warm gray marker to add some shading. So I started with my warm gray 5, then I'm going to blend out with the 3. And it looks fairly dark right now, but as it dries and that alcohol evaporates, it does lighten up a little bit. But that just gives these die cuts a little more dimension. Now for the solid piece that goes on the back, I have a piece of vellum because I want it to look like a jar, but I don't want to cover up my color. So this is a great way to kind of diffuse that color just a little bit so you see something, but still keep the color behind the image that we're going to put in the jar. And I'm just going to lay a block on that so I get even pressure and that glue really attaches. I can also add the lid. Now, the tie that goes around the top of the jar is actually from the jam and honey add-on for the mason jar, and that's just because I liked this string, this double string, and I liked the bow on the side so that it's not in the way of my cute little moth. And I cut both of these string pieces from black sparkle cardstock so they have some shimmer. Now for my sentiment, I have two sentiment banners cut from black cardstock. I am going to stamp my sentiment on two so that one is at the top of my card and one is at the bottom. So it is going to say, "Thank you, very moth." And I'm going to stamp "thank you" first. I am white embossing this on that black, so I treated it with my anti-static powder tool. Excuse my head because I need to line it up. I am stamping "thank you" to the left side of this sentiment banner. I stamped it with that clear embossing ink. Then I added the white embossing powder, and then I can heat this up with that heat tool and melt it so I get that bright white sentiment. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other sentiment banner, but this time I'm stamping on the right side. So this is the second part of the sentiment that says "very moth." So again, stamping with that clear ink, white embossing powder, and then I will heat this up with my heat tool. And I like to kind of clean off that extra anti-static powder with a barely damp rag. So I'm using my chamois that is not very wet at all. And now they are nice and dark and black. So I'm ready to put this onto my card base. My splatters have dried. Of course, I'm just leaving that tape to hold the circle in the middle. There's no need for it to come off. Then I have this stitch scallop rectangle frame cut from sugar plum cardstock. I've put some foam strips all the way around so that it can be popped up off the background, which I think has a really fun look. And of course, this frame is smaller than the card, so we're going to kind of frame up our little jar and our moth in a smaller area on the card. We can go ahead and add the mason jar. So I want to keep that adhesive on the edges, but I can also put some right in the center because I know that that is where I'm putting my little cute moth. So it's going to cover up that glue that you can see through the vellum. Next, I am adding my sentiment, and this is where they're going to be. So they are coming in from the left or the right, and they're overlapping that frame. I am going to put a little strip of foam right where it's going to overhang the side of the frame, and then I will add a foam square on the outside of the frame to support the banner as well. And I like that we can see the frame above that sentiment banner. I did need to move that foam square down just slightly, so that's what I'm doing there. And I went ahead and moved it down here. And once those are stuck down, I'll just trim off the part that overhangs the side. And I just think that's a really fun and different way to do your sentiment. Next, I can add the star of the show, which is this cute little moth. And I will be using some foam squares for him so that he is popped up off the jar. He looks like he's flying. And there's also some stamps in here. That is for the lantern, those little kind of light shine marks, but they have a die that matches, and I thought it would be fun to make him look like he's shining, so I'm just adding those with some liquid glue on each side of this cute little moth in the jar. Now I went kind of embellishment crazy, starting with stars. So I cut out the stars from the I Like Cute Moths set. I've got 3 stars, 2 of each size, and I'm just going to add them in the opposite corners from my sentiment. And I like these that are kind of hanging on to the frame too. I just think that's a fun way to kind of bring the magic inside the frame out. Then I pulled out my iridescent sequins, and this is where I just did so many sequins. But they're iridescent, so they don't really take away from anything, but they add this subtle shimmer that catches the light, and I thought it was really fun. So I'm going to add a bunch inside the frame, outside the frame, kind of overlapping my sentiment banners, and it's just added some fun extra sparkle. And then finally, a little sparkle on our magical little moth in the moon details and the little dots on the wings. And now this card is all finished. I love the colors and that kind of glowy background. I love the composition with the sentiment separated and the frame, and I just think it turned out adorable. So let's make a Halloween card with our cute moths and our all the witch hats. You can see all of my moths and my witch hats colored and cut out. I'm also using the Build a Jack-o'-lantern die set for this glittery jack-o'-lantern using the brand new orange sparkle cardstock. So I'm going to start by layering the black piece that goes behind his face. And this will fill in those eyes and that mouth. I also have the little stem that I'm just going to glue to the back of the top piece. And we will just set him aside with our colored images. For the background, I'm using a piece of the new Stripes and Sprinkles Fall. This is that black piece, and I'm using the polka dot side. I've cut it out with the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles, and then I'm going to do the same for a piece of cilantro cardstock. This is going to be the ground at the bottom. I will be die cutting the top of this with a stitched hillside, but before I do that, I like to stamp my sentiment, and I really love this sentiment in the All the Witch Hats. I love the font, and I think it's nice and bold for a Halloween card. I'm just stamping that in black ink along the bottom. Then I can add my hill die and bring my pumpkin in to make sure I have this hill high enough to accommodate my sentiment and my pumpkin sitting on top. Once I have that stitch hillside cut, I have my 2 pieces. I'm going to do a little bit of inking. So I've pulled out my black licorice ink, and a blending brush, and I am just going to blend the top edge, the sides, and the top corners, kind of giving it this vignette look with those dark edges. So it's going to kind of fade out to that really dark color. On the ground, I'm using Distress Oxide in Clover, and this just adds a really fun kind of shadowy green to my ground. I love how this looks. And of course, I want to clean up my work surface once I'm done with all this inking. Then I can add my background piece to a card base, and since I cut this with the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles, we're going to get that white border all the way around, which I think is very nice with that black piece of pattern paper. For the ground, I'm using some foam tape so that it can be popped up off the background for some fun dimension. I'll just line that up with the bottom of my black pattern paper. Now to add my pumpkin, which is the beautiful sparkly centerpiece of this card, I put foam squares across the top and liquid glue on the bottom where it's going to sit on that green cardstock. And then I will do the same for the top of the pumpkin with a couple little foam squares. And I'm actually going to stick this down with a little bit of space between the bottom and the top because I kind of like it being very obvious that the top can come off. Now for my colored images, I'm adding those little witch hats to my moths. I love that they go in 3 different directions, and this one over here on the right, it's going to be carrying a lantern like they are ready to light the jack-o'-lantern. That's kind of the story for this card. I figured these witchy moths are ready to light the jack-o'-lantern and get ready for Halloween. So I'm just placing them on my card to figure out exactly where I want them to go. Then I'll pick them up and pull off the liner paper for those foam squares and pop them back into place. It's like these two on the side over here on the left, they are supervising while the one on the right is bringing in the lantern to light our jack-o'-lantern. And then I also have some of the stars from the I Like Cute Moss set. There are 3 different sizes of stars, so I colored and cut them out twice, and I'm using a couple of those to fill the night sky. And of course, we need some glitter. We have our beautiful glittery pumpkin, so I added some stardust stickles to all the stars, to the buckles on the witch hats and the flame of the candle, and then I went through on each of the moths and added some sparkle to some of the accents on the wings, so like the dots or the stripes of each of the moth's wings. And then this card is finished. Super quick and easy. I love those cute little moths, and I like the witch hats that we can put on all our critters so that they can celebrate Halloween too. So I am going to use the new All the Witch hats along with the Highland cows to create a fun Halloween card. I'm also using this little broom from the Hocus Pocus add-on set. So there are my 3 little images for my Halloween card. I'm also using the Happy, Happy, Happy sentiment set, and I'm going to use Riley's ABCs to spell out the word Halloween. I am going to white emboss my sentiments on some black cardstock. So I'm going to treat this with my anti-static powder tool all across the top here. So I will be stamping that sort of scripty happy from that Happy, Happy, Happy set. I'm stamping this in some clear embossing ink, and I will add my white embossing powder. Then I can tap off the excess, and I'm not actually going to heat this up just yet. I'm going to stamp out the word Halloween, and I have left some spaces between some of my letters so that I can come back and add some little dashes in between. So I'll stamp that with that same clear embossing ink and then add my white embossing powder. And now I will heat this up with my heat tool till that powder melts and I get that bright white sentiment on that black cardstock. I'll just take my damp chamois and kind of wipe away the excess of that anti-static powder. And once that's dried, I will use the coordinating dies to cut out the word happy. And then I will take my paper trimmer and trim out the word Halloween so I have a little rectangle. I think this is a really fun way to create a custom sentiment. And like I said before, I did leave some little spaces in between. I did want to trim that down just a little bit more. So I'm getting out my white paint pen and I'm just going to add a tiny dash between Hal and Moo and Ween. For my background, I am using the Stripes and Sprinkles Autumn. This is the purple paper. This is the 12 by 12, so I'm just cutting it down to 4¼ by 5½. Then I am going to take the largest of the postage rectangle stackables and trim this out. This will give me a nice white border around my purple paper, and we have that fun postage detail on the edges. Next, I'm going to create a very large moon using the large circle stackable. I've cut this from sunflower cardstock. Then I'm going to take that same circle, it's the exact same size, I'm going to shift it so we can cut the other side and create a crescent moon. So I will just hold this in place with a little bit of low-tack tape, run that through my die cut machine, and now we have this big, beautiful crescent moon. Now I want to add some depth to this die cut, so I am pulling out some Wild Honey Distress ink and a blending brush and just adding some darkness to kind of the bottom outside edge. And I made it a little bit darker at the bottom. I'm just going to pull that up a little bit using what's left on my brush. And now we have this beautiful moon. So now I'm ready to assemble my card, and I'm going to start by putting that purple dot paper onto my card base so we have that nice white border all the way around it. Then I'm going to pull my moon over here and that little Halloween banner so I can look at my spacing. Then I am going to put some foam squares all over the back of my moon so it is popped up off the background. I will also be putting some foam strips on the back of this little Halloween banner and popping that up as well right below the moon. Next, I have my Scripty Happy that I die cut, and this one's going to overlap the moon so that it's popped up on the moon and I don't have to try and put foam squares behind those really skinny lines of the sentiment. So that's just glued directly to the moon. Right where this Y is, it kind of overlaps the bottom, so I will add a little bit of glue there to hold that as well. Now I want to put my little Highland cow onto his broom and add his cute little witch hat. And then of course I want this popped up as well, so I'm adding some foam all over the back. Those foam strips are perfect behind the broom handle there. I did realize I don't need a square on the bottom of the broom, the bristles, because that's going to overlap the moon. So I'll pull off all these liner papers for the squares and the strip, and then I'll add a little bit of liquid glue to the bristles of the broom so that that can glue down directly onto my moon. So now we're ready to embellish with some glitter, and for this one, since I have this big huge moon, I am using my glue tube to put a whole bunch of glue right on the inside of my moon, and I am going to use chunky glitter here, and I just love the look that this creates with that big fat chunky glitter. So I've added my glue. I do have a piece of copy paper below it, and I'm just going to add my chunky glitter on there, and I can put whatever extra falls onto the paper back into the container. And I have these little measuring spoons on my desk that I like to use when I do this. They are measured in dash and pinch, so this is actually a dash of glitter because that's the largest one that I have. Then I wanted some texture to this, so I'm taking a Copic marker and just adding some dots around, some small dots, a little bit bigger dots, but this really makes it have kind of the texture of the moon and not look so smooth. I also have some stars. These are sequin stars cut from the Sequin Mix die, and they are cut out of gold sparkle cardstock. And I'm just kind of sprinkling those around. I used the sequin stars on this card because the largest one is quite large, and there is some space to fill up around this big moon. And once I have their placement there, I'm just going to go through and pick each one up, add a dot of liquid glue, and then drop them back into place. And then finally, our stickles. I want some glitter on my characters as well. So I added some to the hat, to the bristles of the broom, and then I went through and just did a little dot on all those little dots of Copic marker on the moon, just on that texture, just to highlight them even more. And now our cute little punny Happy Halloween card is done. I just love that big moon, and that cow on the broom is so fun.
This card is so cute. I keep imagining him saying moo instead of boo. It's just so much fun. And then this Halloween card with the moss with the witch hats just makes me smile. And then this one blows me away. It is so gorgeous. I love the idea of all the shine in this card. And next up, we have some incredible cards by the design team. And this one by Tammy here absolutely blew me away. It is so stunning. This card by Shari is so much fun. I love the pinks and oranges with the super cute moths. Next up, Grace used our magic picture changer in such a cool way. As you pull the tab, you get this incredible glow around the moth's lantern. Isn't that just stunning? I absolutely love the colors that she used too. This card by Karin is so pretty, and I love the bright colors that she used to bring this card into more of a springy feel. And then here, Jennifer created a really cool swish and pop card. As you pull it, that cute little moth swishes out. And this card has a surprise. It's also a light up card. Isn't that so cool? It's perfect for the moths. Next up, Aji created a really fun Halloween card by adding the witch hats to our Fantastic Friends bats, which is so much fun. And then this moth card by Megan is so pretty. I love that blue moon that she created. Isn't it stunning? Jennifer layered a bunch of our new witch hats all around cute images from our really fun Hocus Pocus stamp set, and I think this is just an adorable card. And then here, I love how June added the moths to our tree house. Isn't this so pretty? I love the colors that she used. Shari added some witch hats to a trio of pumpkins in this really adorable Spooky Hugs card that I think is so much fun. And then this card by Letitia is just adorable. I love the bright colors that she used and all the stars she stamped in her sky. And then here is a really fun card by Rebecca, and I love that spooky forest backdrop with these moths. So we cannot wait to see all of your moth cards and your super cute witch hat cards, so make sure to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!